Back of the vaccine line, that was one of Erin O'Toole's main criticisms for Prime Minister Trudeau as Canada dropped past 50th in the world in the vaccination race. But with the approval of AstraZeneca on Friday, the sudden deluge of vaccines, is all that changing? Is the criticism now blunted? Mr. O'Toole also recently put forward a motion calling China's treatment of the Muslim minority Uyghur population a genocide. This got the support of all the opposition parties and also over 60 Liberal MPs, but the Prime Minister and most of his cabinet didn't even bother to show up for the debate. They keep saying they need to work more closely with the rest of the world on that issue. Is that a fair position or a moral failure? To talk about that and lots more, we are joined now by the Conservative Party Leader of Canada, Erin O'Toole. Mr. O'Toole, great to have you back on the program. I got to start with vaccines because obviously big news about AstraZeneca. You've long argued that Canada will not be able to meet the Prime Minister's vaccination targets, but with these new vaccines coming, more Moderna, more Pfizer, Canada's now, according to the government, on place to beat those targets. Were your criticisms misplaced?
I actually hope the government meets its targets, Evan. We need people vaccinated so we can turn the corner on COVID and get our economy moving, reopen, unite families again. So I want them to succeed. When I said back of the line last fall, it's because they weren't releasing details on the contracts or the timelines. And we've seen throughout the last few months, we've trailed where other countries have been, and that's been disappointing. But we want them to succeed. AstraZeneca, that's good news. How they're going to deploy that, what age groups and these sorts of things. These are questions we have, but overall it's good. We pushed him to call Prime Minister Modi, for example, to see if we could get some supplies from India. It looks like some of those vaccines will come from there. So that was the opposition doing our part to try and get a better result together.
What would you be doing differently on the economic front? Because you've been asked before, you said, look, I support most of these programs. The NDP's asking for more paid sick leave. What would you be doing differently in terms of either the vaccine rollout and or the economic situation?
Well, look, we've been 2 or 3 steps behind our G7 countries in every stage of this crisis, including rapid tests, now vaccines. We're trying to push for better. The small business crisis is huge from coast to coast, Evan. I speak with chambers every day, literally. We need to do more there. We've said there should be a delay in harmful CRA audits. We've said the carbon tax should be taken off farming families. We oppose Mr. Trudeau's carbon tax. He now wants to triple it. We need to provide more certainty. We've tried to improve the rent program the government had. Our advice was finally heeded. So we need every sector to do well so the whole country can recover. We can't reimagine the economy as Mr. Trudeau wants to. We need everyone working in every part of the country, and that will be my relentless focus.
Canadians who are coming back to Canada now have to stay in these quarantine hotels. It's expensive. It's a couple $1,000 for a 3-day stay. There have been screw-ups on the reservation system. The rollout has been anything but smooth. There's been some security concerns, but I'm trying to figure this out. Your party is now saying they should end these quarantine hotels after months and months of saying, have tougher measures at the border, stop people at the border, make sure you're testing people. They do it. It's not so smooth right now. Now you're saying, stop it. Pick a lane here. Which is it? Should they be doing those or not?
They have to guarantee the safety of Canadians. These are meant to protect people, Evan. And the story of a sexual assault at one of them is horrific. And I want to see an approach to keep people safe. And we saw they didn't really even consider doing a supervised process in someone's home as opposed to forcing them into a hotel. People can't even make reservations. There's more than a day's wait. This government can't run a hotline, for goodness sake. So Australia, other countries that did this months ago, the government didn't learn the lessons there either. So as I said, I want the government to be doing better. They always seem to be about 2 or 3 steps behind, and we have a prime minister that is there for the photo ops, but not for the follow-ups and for accountability.
You had a motion calling China's treatment of the Uyghur minority, the Muslim minority population in Western China, a genocide. It got unanimous support. It also, part of that was to relocate the 2022 Beijing Olympic Games. The Prime Minister didn't show up to that. But let me ask you, if you believe that China is committing a genocide, is boycott or moving the Olympics enough? Are you willing to take further steps, for example, stop selling Canadian oil or agricultural goods to China? What is acceptable to do with a country that is committing a genocide?
Well, first I want to thank the MPs, including many Liberal MPs who voted on our motion. It was the right thing to do, standing for human rights. I was disappointed that Mr. Trudeau and most of his cabinet didn't even show up. What we need to do now is work with more allies to have this widely recognized. The evidence is overwhelming, Evan. We can't turn a blind eye. We should also look at tracing and banning any goods manufactured from that part of China, because we can't allow slave labor conditions or forced labor conditions to allow things to be sold in Canada. I also think we should look at Magnitsky sanctions, a range of issues where we can apply pressure.
And Mr. Trudeau's saying he wants to work with allies, but he is not prepared to call it a genocide. The Canadian military, sir, is reeling. You're a veteran. Last week, the newly minted Chief of the Defence Staff, Admiral MacDonald, abruptly stepped aside after only 2 months on the job. The government won't say why. They only confirmed he's being investigated. The former Chief of the Defence Staff, General Jonathan Vance, subject of a House of Commons committee probe over allegations. He engaged in inappropriate sexual relationship with an officer under his command. He denies that. What needs to happen here? What are your questions about the absolute mess at the very top of the Canadian military?
We need swift action, Evan, and I've said we need an independent investigation. We have to take it out of the chain of command. It is unprecedented. 2 chiefs of defense staff in the last few months have been under most serious allegations. We need to put a freeze on promotions and pay increases to general and flag officers, and send a signal, particularly to women, that you can serve your country with honor and free from harassment and disrespect. As a veteran, I'm proud of the Canadian Armed Forces, and I want it to be that beacon for everyone. So this is serious. These are measures I've pushed for. The Canadian Armed Forces needs to be a place for all Canadians to feel they can put their country first. So we need swift action.
There's a chance there's a spring election, right? It's a minority government. The Liberals are going to finally get a budget after almost 2 years. But Jagmeet Singh, the leader of the NDP, has said, I will not have a spring election, so I won't vote against the budget. Are you prepared to have a spring election? Would you be prepared to vote against a budget that could bring down the government?
I think Jagmeet's smart. We need vaccines before we need a vote. I've been saying this for some time as well. We've seen from Newfoundland and Labrador, Evan, when a Liberal government tries to take advantage of some timing with an election and it turns into turmoil. We need vaccines and arms. I want the government to succeed, as I've said, so that we can tackle the rebuilding and the economic issues after. Yes. We have to get the country vaccinated before we're worried about votes. And I would hope that Mr. Trudeau sees that the health and well-being of the population comes before the health of the Liberal Party.
All right, I got to leave it there this morning. Great to have you back on the program, sir. Thank you, Erin O'Toole.
Thank you, Evan.